Guess that wasn't too bad. Okay, I think we're live on YouTube.
Oh,
Um, so ready to go. So welcome, Steph. We
hi.
are doing a special podcast only edition. Why this is going on Oak Town Improv website, I have no idea. On YouTube, no idea, because that's what's already set up. But Steph and I, we did a jam the other day on Sunday
Yes.
with some people, and
Improv
afterwards,
jam. Improv jam.
improv jam, and we were talking about the Odyssey that came up, and surprisingly, I mean, I was kind of surprised that you and I had exactly the same sort of take on it.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, the first thing you said, I didn't say anything. The first thing you said was,
Yeah, the movie was soulless. Soulless. Had no soul. It was a big
yeah,
spectacular nothing burger.
and I went, oh my God, really? Because that's exactly my first impression of the movie. And so I watched it I was at the theater last Saturday. And it's one of the only movies ever where I wish the person I was with had leaned over to me and said, "Can we go now?"
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
because the first 2.5 hours of the movie, he says you don't care about anybody. You don't.
Yeah.
There's you don't. And so then it's not until the last 15 minutes where things start coming together. It's a Nolan thing, I guess, where you kind of keep the whole thing, everything's sort of a
Yeah.
secret, a last minute reveal, sort of on everything.
Sure. Sure.
Um,
I don't mind the back and forth storytelling, where they jump around a lot. That really didn't bother me. Um, it's just that way they presented the story, it just was really uninteresting. It was it just, and I don't think it had to do with the order of things as much as it did how they uh, how they wanted each scene, how they composed each scene and directed it.
yeah, my feeling on it is that it's pure hubris to think you can take the Odyssey and put the whole thing into a 3 hour movie, right? So it's one of those things that should be punished by the gods because it's impossible. You can't do it.
Um,
And so for me, the whole first 2.5 hours is just a series of unfortunate events. You know what I mean? It's like let's just squeeze all the events in, you
yeah,
know, and then
yeah,
let's not get to know any characters. Let's not get any backstory on people or their
mhm,
relationships. Let's
yeah,
not show any camaraderie. Let's not have any humor. I mean, there's two tiny moments of humor in the whole
yeah,
film.
two, yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
Um, the rest of it's just like let's squeeze a bunch of, and it's not even like completely accurate to the original Homer's Odyssey poem. And so all right, let me just throw this in for a sec. So I was watching a review, trying to get trying to get other people to chime in on it. See what they
Sure, yeah,
thought. So I was watching an interview with Martin Shaw. So Martin Shaw is an author and a storyteller, right? Um, and the first thing he said in his review was, "Yeah, I found this movie to be soulless."
wow,
Exactly the
interesting.
same. He said exactly the same thing we did. And then later on, he goes, "The thing is, you can't." So he's actually told the read Homer's poem, the Odyssey, on the
Mhm.
slopes of like Mount Vesuvius for like a week, for like 100 tourists or whatever. So he
He
knows
didn't
about
do it.
storytelling.
He didn't do it on Mount Olympus. He did it on Vesuvius. That's
I,
interesting.
I don't hold me to Vesuvius.
Okay, yeah,
That's
yeah,
the one that sticks in my mind in the region, but it's
yeah,
probably
yeah.
so some
Olympus is good.
mountain, probably yeah, probably Mount Olympus. Um, if there's such a thing, is there a real Mount Olympus?
Yeah, yeah. There's Mount Olympus.
Okay. Um, so later on, he goes. he goes, here's the deal. You can't tell a good story without humor, without a certain amount of humor. And like, in fact, you need a good portion of humor because like this is how you
Mm.
flesh out people and get to know people and how you show that they're multifaceted and they're
Yeah.
real human beings. Like so in Nolan's The Odyssey, we don't get that. We don't get that we're like who's real. Let's go through who's real. Like let's go through, Odysseus, not that real. Not that real. Like
Mhm.
it's just he plays it straight. It's just sort of a flat, straight character. He seems kind of guilty and or distraught the whole time. Um,
Yeah. Well,
they don't even show him being clever. Like they don't show that he's the one that's like it's my idea to do the Trojan horse. They don't show that. They don't show they just there's very little they show about traditional Odysseus cleverness. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, but
yeah.
this is a big part of him. It's a huge part of him. There's that. There's his cleverness, and there's his hubris. That's Odysseus. And like, but we don't see. We see the hubris. I think, but then that's part of being flat and just like sort of kind of
Yeah.
things down. So anyway, so the characters that stand out. Probably the best instant character. You probably agree with this. To me, the best instant character is Odysseus's right-hand man, played by Himesh Patel.
Yeah.
I forget the character's name exactly. It's but he's the brother-in-law of Odysseus. And anyway, he seems very present and very you get his kind of loyalty and right away. And you also get his like when he's sort of like really questioning Odysseus, you get that skepticism, that deep skepticism also. He's like, no, we're not doing that, or you're staying with the ship or whatever. So I to me, he seems like the best, the character that got away without having a bunch of character.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. I thought he was a very enjoyable, good to watch character. I've loved his acting and his characters ever since I saw him on the HBO series, the franchise, where he played an AD, assistant director on a kind of failed, doomed superhero movie. It's great. Yeah, he's terrific, and he did a great job. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah, but as to the idea of caring about other characters or caring about characters in a film. Strangely, in this, I didn't really have a deep connection or care what happened to all these characters in this movie, including
yeah.
Anne Hathaway or his son was an interesting character. Um, it's kind of in the mythos of looking at the idea of masculinity and the young man trying to trying to make that passage from being a boy into a man and protecting his mother and honoring his father and being brave. Um, so that was the idea. Um, and it's interesting in the story as well because he's really always in the shadow of Odysseus. He's always in that shadow with the suitors and with his mother, and you know,
He would be, as he would be. We just we get his rite of passage is when he battles the this rogue. It's like a rogue farmhand who decides to help the suitors for some reason and goes to try to pass weapons down from the upper chamber.
oh yes, yeah, yeah,
So finally, Telemachus has his sort of coming of age is this. Well, he does go look for his father, so that's kind of a first step. He goes
yeah,
to search for his father no matter what. So that's kind of a first step of like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm taking charge of something. And
Hmm.
then he has his. Then he has his. So in the original poem, it's Odysseus and Telemachus that kill all of the suitors together. They fight together and they kill them. But we don't allow that anymore, right? So with our current, you know, sensibilities, we Telemachus had to keep his hands totally clean, right? And so all he gets to do is have one justified battle,
Okay.
and the killing of the
Yeah.
rogue ranch hand that was, or farmhand that was trying to
Hmm.
pass weapons to the suitors.
Yeah.
And that's his rite of passage, and that's it. And then he's ready to be king,
Mhm.
apparently. After that, I
And
mean,
the story has a lot of complexities and ins and outs, and it's an epic. So there's a lot of, there's the setting the stage. Odysseus' problem is he wants to go home. He needs to get home. He wants to get back to his wife. He's worried about his wife. He wants to retain his kingdom. He's the king. He wants to go back. And the problem is the challenges or the various obstacles in his way of trying to
yeah,
get back
yeah,
and complete his journey. Um, and it's probably the classic story of obstacles because there
yeah,
is so many obstacles. He's got gods that are trying to stop him. He's got gods that don't like him. He's got gods that like him. And he's really at the mercy and he's using all of his human effort to try to overcome all these obstacles. There's whirlpools, there's cyclops, there's the sirens,
yeah.
all of this stuff. So series of obstacles, and it's like it's the standard sort of that kind of
Yeah.
a story. Um,
The problem is that Nolan changes that. He changes that to maybe he doesn't want to go home. So, and I believe this comes from one of the other later sort of additions
mhm,
to the Odysseus story, where they sort of bring that into question. But
mhm.
originally, Homer's poem is no. Homer Odysseus wants to get home
Right.
fiercely
Yeah, that's the
and
classic
just
story.
encounters. And so this is kind of messed up on that. This is kind of like more like internal, and this is. But see, this is what we look for in our current day and age. We look for sort of that sort of sort of modern Christian morality of like, he's got to be guilty for like sacking Troy and
Oh yeah,
hurting,
yeah, yeah,
hurting
yeah.
people. He's he he has to atone for like killing the suitors at the end by being exiled, which is not in the original poem either. Like in the original poem, he and Athena gives him and Telemachus a pass for because they overstayed their welcome, right? It was just part of
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They
part of
were,
Xenia,
yeah,
the law of Zeus. So um,
exactly, exactly.
and then so we also have that other internalization, like so. Ancient Greeks didn't have. There's nothing in their stories about being introverted or introspective or having any kind of internal focus, right? So
Hmm.
like it would only come up if people were looking at you and you might
Yeah.
feel aidos. You might feel a certain kind of shame if somebody caught you doing something, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And
Well,
so
it was the describing a time, even when it was written, of really constant warfare among these city states and large empires in the Mediterranean, from Greece to Egypt to Persia to Alexander the Great's great you know conquests. And later on, it would then eventually the Etruscans and the Romans take power from the previous rulers. But it's a time of constant warfare. So I don't know how guilty
yeah,
that the Greeks would have felt about sacking.
exactly,
But
exactly.
everybody was doing it. That's what you do.
Yeah,
You know, if they didn't do it, the Trojans would have done it to them,
yeah.
or
That's
vice versa.
definitely, yeah. No, that's definitely the fault of our our current sensibilities, our modern sensibilities with Christian morality. This is pointed out pretty clearly by someone else I watched, which was Deacon Seraphim um, Roland. He points out right away that like, okay, this is like there's some really modern stuff in this movie.
Yeah, yeah, it's okay. I think, to me, that's okay of taking a look at something through a modern lens and saying, well, there's some problems with that. I didn't really care. That part didn't bother me. I guess there was something kind of dead about it, and it's hard to put a finger on it.
Yeah,
It wasn't like,
not alive.
because the really good movies of the previous year and years, um, that were all the Academy Award nominees or winners, were really definitely held your interest and kept you in the seat of your pants. And, you know, that one with um, uh, DiCaprio,
Uh,
where he was a revolutionary, and all those an older guy that it was kind of an anarchist revolutionary guy.
okay.
Um, yeah, that last year they really, you really cared about the characters, and it was a terrific juxtaposition of the characters, and really well drawn villains. So okay, so this one is, was there
Well,
a
let me
was there a
let
villain?
me
Was there a villain
let
in
me
this?
so I would say the same thing about Troy. So I liked the movie Troy. I felt like I knew all of the characters well. So like
Yeah,
even though I'm a big sort of Achilles worshiper, um, as soon as he drags Hector around on the sand, like that's it. Like that's the transgression of Zeus's law right there. And so you don't like everything's just perfect in that movie. Like everything's balanced. Like
yeah,
everything happens the way it's supposed to happen.
yeah,
Right? You know everybody. You get why things are happening, and everything seems balanced, etc.
yeah.
So, is there a so first of all, I remember the name. So Eurylocus was the name of Odysseus's brother-in-law, played by Himesh Patel. Eurylocus.
Yeah.
So the villains in this film are the suitors, are they not? So
Okay, okay.
the head suitor, and the suitor, and the second in command suitor, right? They're
Mhm.
sort of the evil
Yes, yeah,
evil
yeah,
guys.
yeah.
Um,
But yeah, so okay, so they're villains, but it's an interesting kind of a villain because they're not directly um, in contact with Odysseus. They're
uh,
removed. They're doing
no,
something
but
removed from him.
they're in direct contact with his wife, and so
Yes.
um,
But
again,
not,
it plays on our very modern sensibilities of like, oh my God, is he's really he's really being forward with Penelope, right? And
yeah.
like that's his worst crime, really. Well, he does try to get Telemachus killed, and
Yes.
then he's
Yeah.
about to kill Telemachus himself,
Yes.
right? And he's very
Yeah.
forward with Penelope. I mean, but that's really the extent of his crimes. He doesn't actually kill anyone or have
Well,
uh,
okay, and okay, so segue a little bit to the women in the film. Um, so Calypso, the woman that keeps Odysseus in a drug state,
yeah.
um, um, why? Why does she do that? I wasn't quite sure. She loved him, or
Well, no, that's
was
just Calypso.
she?
She's
That's
an
what she does.
enchantress. She's a temptress,
That's
enchantress.
what she does. Yeah,
She's a captivator. Like
yeah.
she
I did.
somehow, but for some reason, I didn't really look into this, but for some reason, she's feeling like she's overstaying. So she's had it for 7 years, and so somehow, um, she has a conscience, right?
Yeah,
And so like you've stayed 7 years, and so I wouldn't be a good host if I didn't tell you that it's time for you to go, sort of thing. It's like
yeah,
that seemed a little. I mean, it was all okay, and and Odysseus had this moment where he's like,
Yeah.
he realizes what's happened and all this stuff. It's kind of nice. So it was one of the
Yeah.
nicer moments when he's like, "How long have I been here?" And he kind of breaks down and
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, it's kind of a again, um, that's a weak character. Like normally a temptress is gonna
Yeah.
they're not really gonna let you go, and they're gonna be and they're gonna be like they're gonna have their claws in you. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
know.
I don't know the real, that's a fault of mine. I don't know the real story well enough to see how in Homer's works Odysseus was able to leave Calypso. I don't
I
remember how
think
that worked. Do you do?
my memories. So yeah, we'll have to stay a little gray on that. But my memory is that um, Calypso is a temptress, and so
Mm,
a seductress, and so she doesn't want him to leave, and he has to wake back up
hmm.
and like
Okay.
and kind of I mean I don't think it's a touchy feely
No.
goodbye kind of deal. So that's Calypso. What
Um,
else?
I thought it was an interesting choice. I thought it was really an interesting choice to have Helen, Helen of Troy, as an African American or African woman, and um, and being disfigured, disfigured, that she was the greatest beauty in the world, and in her recapture, she was disfigured,
Yeah.
and that was I thought that was an interesting choice.
We don't know what the backstory is there. So it kind of looks like so somehow Helen got disfigured. We don't know whether it happened. Probably didn't come from Paris because he seemed like
No,
sort of a nice guy, and so probably Menelaus is a bit of a. He's like he probably punished her for having left in the first place. So probably
yes,
is one of yeah. So the only good relationship in this movie is Odysseus and Penelope, right? Everything else is screwed up. So um,
yeah,
in this movie, um, Helen's has a twin sister, Clymestra. So in the Odyssey poem, it is her sister, Clymestra, but they're not twins. So in this one, they're twins. Her twin is the bride of King Agamemnon, right? He's the head honcho.
yeah,
He's
yes,
king
right.
of, king of Mycenae, or however you say that, Mycenae,
Hmm.
uh, who ends up killing him when he gets home because she's
Well, his wife, yeah, his wife kills him because he sacrificed their daughter.
oh yeah, that's definitely probably the biggest part
Yeah,
of it.
yeah. Agamemnon was not a good guy. He was not a good guy. Sacrifices his daughter.
Yeah,
Um,
we didn't get to
and
see that though. Once again, the movie's too short. Like there's so many good things to show that didn't get shown, like
yeah,
Odysseus.
maybe that would have been great to have. But if that was the case, it would have made Odysseus look bad because he's following this horrible person. So you don't really. I think it's just a filmmaking
Yeah,
technique.
but like exactly, that's part of the problem here is that so much of the complexity has been like rinsed out of it, and so
Yeah. Hmm.
Calypso is flat, Odysseus is flat, like even Telemachus is flat. Like he doesn't have a lot of
Yeah.
verve.
I thought he was strangely flat for the angst he was going through. He didn't
Exactly.
seem, yeah. Um, it was really flat acting on his part. He didn't never
And
seem super, super pissed off or
I
super
don't
engaged.
I don't feel like this was acting. Because these people are good actors.
They are, for the most part.
So even so John um
Louisiana. Yeah.
Leguizamo. John Leguizamo plays the swineherd, right? He's probably the most likable character in the whole thing. Besides Eurolocus, like Eurolocus is sort of instantly likable, but our sort of a longer term buddy is John Leguizamo's character, the swineherd.
Yeah.
He's like the loyal wise. He's the wise man. He's the old wise man in this story. But even John Leguizamo, like he's a little bit flat, like to start with at least.
Mhm.
I really think it's the directing. I think that it
Yes.
really, to me, feels like we're rushing through the events, just trying to get all the events in, and we're not
Yeah.
having any. You know, maybe there's some DP involved in there where we're not getting close-ups at the right time or something. But um,
Well, again, segueing back to the women, Penelope, um, Anne Hathaway, um, m- possibly for some um, storytelling reason or for some reason they wanted to keep her hidden. So she was a lot of the movie she was behind a screen, and that didn't work for me.
no, no,
Uh,
like it was
I
supposed to
like
create. No, no, you get. I totally get it. It's supposed to create this it's like what's the word, longing, and it's supposed to create this sort of um sort of almost an infinite longing for this,
yeah,
right? Like she should have remarried by now. The
yeah.
suitors are going crazy. It should create this enormous tension, but it doesn't. It
Well,
doesn't.
yeah, yeah. It's um, I understand that. Okay, so you want this great beauty, this woman. They can't, she can't be out there
Right.
for
She can't be out on the floor. Yeah.
for the lustful view of these guys.
Yeah.
But she's there. It's a screen, and it's like, yeah, I don't know. I missed her acting. I've seen her in movies where I really, and she's the kind of actress. She's kind of subtle, which is great for filmmaking. A lot of her facial expressions and the way she acts with her eyes and her face um, is terrific. But you didn't get that in this movie at
Well,
all.
um, I would disagree with that slightly because um, one of my favorite moments was, Odysseus, breaking down about to say goodbye to Calypso, but also a couple of the little moments. They're not very long, unfortunately, but there's a couple of moments with Penelope that I think are, I think probably the final one is the best, where Penelope knows she has a strong feeling that this is Odysseus, but he has to prove it, and so
Hmm.
there's that whole kind of lead up,
Hmm.
and then this is Odysseus, and then the little brooch of Athena. Like, I mean, to me, she has a couple of nice moments, but I totally agree with you. Like, barely, just barely. Like we stole a couple moments with Anne Hathaway.
Yeah,
Instead of like God, like we want to
yeah,
spend more time with her. Yeah.
yeah. It's what's kind of interesting is there's been a lot of kind of more, I guess, less psychologically deep and more surface movies that were made of a lot of the Greek myths and so forth. I call them surface level. It's just like adventure and action and adventure, like the Jason and the Argonauts, the Golden Fleece, those kind of, the one with the Kraken, the gods. Um, so there's a bunch of those, and they had the special effects by Harryhausen or George Pal type of things, where they made a big deal about the special effects, and they were basically Indiana Jones type of adventure movies,
Yeah.
and those movies were Clash of the Titans, I think it was Clash of the Titans. They're enjoyable. They're simple. There's no real depth to anybody, but they tell the story, and they're enjoyable. Uh, but for some reason, this wasn't as enjoyable as
No.
those superficial kind of adolescent Clash of the
No.
Titans,
Like,
movies.
yeah, my the person I went to see the movie with, at some point they're like, I get the feeling you didn't like this movie, and I was like, would you not recommend this movie to someone? Um, and I said, if I wanted to recommend a movie, if somebody asked me if it was a movie they would enjoy, I would say no, because I did not find this movie enjoyable at all. I mean, I learned, because I did my homework before and after, it's educational, but that's not enjoyment. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't find this
Yeah,
movie
yeah,
enjoyable or like,
yeah, yeah.
or like, like I didn't, some people are like, oh, The Return of the Father really hit me hard, blah, blah. Like, to me, maybe I'm so disenfranchised at that point that I mean, I did like it. I did like that when he's finally back on Ithaca. There's definitely something about it.
Yeah.
Um,
There's also a kind of a an over exposure or over, we've seen so many of these titanic superhero battle movies with the end where Wonder Woman or Superman or Batman or Iron Man, the Hulk, they engage the villain or the villains in these titanic battles. And even in some other kinds of movies of that ilk, where there's the big final battle scene. Um, so we're used to these kind of climatic battle scenes. And so it's a lot to ask in this one to be better than those because there have been so many of them and they've been done pretty well. This one kind of failed. It wasn't as good as like,
and they
most of
did
those
well.
superhero movies.
Nolan didn't pick a side. Well, I mean, those movies are, in my opinion, they're out of control. Like I stopped watching them as soon as the Incredible Hulk could all of a sudden, leap like 4,000 feet in the air off the ground. I was like, okay, I just shut it off. I'm like, it's gone too far. Like it was already amazing that he could jump like 2 stories. Okay,
Yeah,
that's amazing, and it's reasonable.
yeah,
But if he can jump up and land on an airplane, like you've lost me. Okay, like that's
yeah,
not. There's no reality in that.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
but I
No,
get it. I mean, the comparison is still there. But also, Nolan didn't pick a side. Are you telling a grand action movie, or are you being true to some of the themes of the Odyssey? Which there's a lot of them, and they're complex, and there's all these dysfunctional
yeah,
relationships in there.
yeah. Okay, okay, so looking at the climatic battle scene types of films, Kurosawa's Seven Samurai or Yojimbo kind of thing, where essentially Yojimbo is like that, where it's just one samurai, a fallen samurai maybe, who takes on these, 20 guys. And that one was good. I mean, that was entertaining. And he did it the way he did it, it didn't take as long. I mean, he blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah, and the fight. But this thing, it just went on too long. You know, um, uh, it, it was just better. Those Seven Samurai and Jimbo, the climatic fight
Well,
scenes were
it's
better.
hard to beat Seven Samurai. So, but I don't think it was too long.
Yeah, I did. I
I
thought it
think
was,
it was that we didn't like anybody, so we didn't care.
oh,
Like
maybe.
like it's just and I also think there was something wrong with photography. Again, I'm going to bring that up because the way the photography was done, it never pulled you in. It never like invited you in for a closer look.
Mm,
So like
yeah.
even with all this whole sequence of killing all the suitors and the complexities involved,
Mhm.
it just feels rushed or like you're never getting a full view of anything. Nothing's ever made like important. So like maybe what it is that in this movie you almost never see anyone's reaction to anything.
Mm.
Like on good movies like you have the
Yes.
main character. You have the main character who tends to be somewhat stoic because they're that's what heroes are. They're a little less emotional. But then there's always good reactions by everybody else.
Yes. Yeah.
You don't get that in this movie. Like
That's true.
nobody has any friends. Nobody has any friends.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're
That's
never
true.
panning to anyone. There's no supporting characters.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I'm just wondering of about overexposure, and this is kind of maybe going against some of the things we've been saying in our feelings about it, but because there's been so much overexposure of a lot of the elements of this movie, uh, strong heroes, battle scenes, uh, robotic things. Uh, because we are so used to it now, we've seen some of the really great ones, um, all the way back to the great Japanese films, or superhero movies or battle movies, that maybe we're just overexposed. So when we put it all together, the whole thing never lives up to the what we remember. I'm just wondering if that's
Well,
part of the issue.
maybe, but I don't feel like I'm overexposed on that stuff anymore.
Hmm.
But I do have a strong demand for characters, in-depth characters and relationship. And if I don't get that, I start losing interest.
Yeah, yeah,
So let's move on to the psychologization of Athena. So the main, or one of the main relationships in this film is Odysseus and Athena. Now, in this movie, Athena is psychologized, right? So instead of having Cassandra in this film who gets raped at the altar of Athena, we just have sort of a no-name priestess that gets murdered at the altar of Athena. And again, we have this sort of internal sort of Christian guilt sort of thing where that figure kind of comes into Odysseus's mind. It's sort of his conscience. Athena becomes his conscience,
hmm
as if Odysseus is, overly introspective.
yeah,
um, so I actually, you know what, and I think that's a choice. I think psychologizing the gods is an interesting choice.
yeah,
That's probably how I would do it if I made. I wouldn't make a whole Odyssey movie. I would make it'd be like Star Wars, right? There'd be all these parts kind of thing. But that's how I would do it, because when you tell stories of war, they're always exaggerated, right?
yeah,
And to me, this is how you get giants and cyclopses and
yeah,
Scylla and monsters, these kind of things. They're just exaggerations of truth, right?
yes,
So if you're going to psychologize the gods, Athena is really the only one we ever see. But if you're going to
yeah,
psychologize her, then why not make all of the other enemies, or obstacles of Odysseus? Why not make them more realistic or naturalistic? You know what I mean? Like
hmm
you could still have a Cyclops, someone who's lost an eye, or or maybe it's some strange breed of people that have one eye, and maybe they're a little bit bigger, but maybe they're reasonably sized. Not like 80-foot giants, but just something that you could actually
yeah,
could actually happen type of deal. Like, I mean, and oh my God, somebody. So that would be my choice. If you're going to psychologize the gods, then,
hmm
dude, then bring the giants and monsters, make them into some kind of naturalistic obstacle also,
right, yeah, yeah,
and make the story psychological. I mean, that's a choice. If you're going to do that, do that. But I wouldn't but if you're going to have, Scylla, this huge, CGI monster coming off a cliff, grabbing guys off the boat, then why not show us real gods? Why not have Athena show up with
yeah,
some credible garb on? And here's probably the reason. The reason is they used somebody so it was Roland who kind of says that the most modern feature of the movie was Odysseus's. I think he was saying it was Odysseus's guilt about having sacked Troy or something.
yes,
To
right, that,
me, the most modern thing was King Agamemnon, right? In his anodized titanium suit. I mean, what is he, Terminator? And he never does anything, but he's like 8 foot tall, and he has this shiny, there's no way you could have this shiny anodized thing like in ancient Greece, right? This is the Bronze Age.
Yeah.
Like it's just like where this just makes no sense. And then, yeah, and then
Yeah,
the
that's the that's the strange juxtaposition in the director's choice. You have some of it very realistic because I thought a lot of the costuming and paraphernalia things that they had were very realistic as far as that era in the history of ancient Greece. But then there are these moments or these certain characteristics or characters or objects that are not consistent with that. For instance, like you say, Agamemnon is totally, he's like he's like a robot. It's not at all realistic. And then also in other films that I've seen of this story, uh, the Trojan horse was, to me, was kind of more realistic of a wooden structure that would have been able to be made. This looked like it was a
yeah,
highly
it was
sophisticated
polished.
metal polished work that would obviously so there's these things that are kind of go in and out of being realistic and not realistic. So it's a tough choice, you know. You could try to go super realistic
Yeah,
and just make it really authentic, like and you know I'm not citing this as a good movie, but a super realistic like um, the Passion of the Christ,
right.
you know, where whether you like the movie or not, it was very realistic and historically accurate as far as the costumes and the life and
Right, but
everything.
this is the least. This movie, this is the least of the problems. Like, wardrobe and costuming, and
Mhm.
Viking ships on the Aegean. These are the least of our the least of our worries. The Lestrygonians, like they're in Homer's Odyssey, they are cannibals, right? That don't have any armor on. But in this one, they look like Cybermen. They're like 16 foot
Yeah,
tall Cybermen.
yeah,
The only thing missing is the shoom, 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 shoom. I
mm,
mean, but otherwise, they're like bright silver, sort of
yeah.
like how do you
You
even
know
get that
what?
silver? How do you
I
even get
was
that silver armor in that age? Uh,
well. I'm remembering, and I might be wrong about this. I'm just going to do a quick check. I think that there was a movie called Ulysses, uh, made sometime in the 50s or 60s with Kirk Douglas.
Kirk Douglas, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think so. Yeah, Kirk Douglas movie.
I
And if
have
I remember correct, um, um, Douglas really, I thought, really played that part really well. He did. He was really great.
yeah.
Matt Damon is an excellent actor. I take nothing away from Matt Damon, but Kirk Douglas actually showed more of the what I would feel is a more accurate portrayal.
No, it was yeah. I mean, I there was one guy I listened to. He said that the Kirk Douglas version was better.
Yeah, it is.
Um, everything was like, but again, like Kirk Douglas on that one is real. He's a real
Yeah,
person, a human. You
yeah,
know him well. You're intimate with him and the people that are close to him, right?
yes,
In
yeah.
this film, that's why I don't think it's the acting because you got Matt Damon, you have Charlize Theron. Um, Himesh Patel shows some spark, which is cool.
Really great. And Anne Hathaway, they're all
John
good.
Leguizamo, Anne Hathaway, so that you've got good actors, right?
Absolutely.
And yet there's something wrong with the directing or something where there's too much flatness going on.
Mm.
Um, and then you get to like to me, okay, the movie starts when so the Return of the Father. So Odysseus is back on Ithaca. There's something there's a big pressure release when that happens because like it's just a long sort
Yeah,
of journey.
yeah.
Um,
Um, um,
the movie really starts when he touches his dog. So he's got this 20-year-old dog that's been waiting for him to come home,
yeah,
right? He touches the dog. This is the first human moment of the whole movie, like this contact with the dog. And there's a little moment with Telemachus, his son, of like, and Telemachus realizes this
yeah,
is his
yeah,
father.
yeah.
Yeah, you should take him back to where you found him.
Even that was
Speaking of
in
which,
a
side note, You mentioned this earlier about nonstop warring era. Um, there's no way the Trojans. So in the Iliad, there's no way the Trojans were on the beach for 10 years. I mean, the Greeks were on the beach for 10
Greeks, yeah,
years.
no,
It's
no.
not sustainable. So the truth that scholars say the truth of it is that they would. It was just an ongoing thing where they'd show up seasonally, and it was like an ongoing thing. But they'd go home like they
Yeah, yeah.
you'd have to go
Well,
home
yeah.
and restock up everything.
And in ancient warfare, and even heading towards modern time, the idea of supplying the forces, because in medieval, not I'm talking about these historic ancient times, they lived off of pillaging land. So these armies would move, and the only way that they could have food was to pillage villages and places along the way, farmlands. So that's where the army moved. This was even during the Crusades, when the Crusaders from various parts of Europe moved towards the Middle East. They ravaged lots of parts of Europe on the way because it was this huge army of men, and there's no way to, to supply them with food and supplies and so forth. So
Yeah.
so it lived on pillaging and theft, and even in the Civil War, our Civil War, uh, troops on both sides had to attack farmlands and so forth to get food. Because the
Yeah.
supply is there's no way
Well,
to supply a European army going to the Middle East if the
well,
army's coming from France and England.
yeah. That's a big part of the story, though. So they do fit that into this because um, some historians think that the sea people um, did play a large part in the end of the Bronze Age. The collapse of the
Mhm.
Bronze Age. The sea people were warriors returning home from Troy. They became the sea people because they're ravaging as they come back.
They have to, yeah.
But somehow they're taking way too long. So there's probably some truth in the Odysseus story, taking too long to come home because you're sort of ruining
Mhm. Well,
these kind of regions trying to get back.
there's yeah, these kinds of stories from that period and before um, always have really challenging ideas of time. I think the classic one is the Hebrews escaping from Egypt. Essentially they were migrating and leaving out of historically from bondage in Egypt and going towards Judea and Israel, the land of Judea, from Egypt, which is not that far. Okay, it doesn't take you 40 years. Okay. And the idea of surviving, and that's a very, very inhospitable zone, land, that area between, or, from uh, the northern Nile up through the Saudi Peninsula and up into uh, Palestine, Israel area. It's very hostile. There's not much there. Desert primary, a lot of desert. So how do you live for 40 years in a desert? You know, they say they live. How do you do that? I mean, it's like we were in the desert for 40 years. So no, that wasn't likely,
Yeah.
and it wouldn't even take you that long. Probably would take you less than a week
Just seemed like 40 years.
for walking. I mean, even
Yeah.
people walking from uh, from the mouth of the Nile up to
Right. Well,
Tel Aviv, and
well, they had to pay they were, I think they were doing a lot of repenting from what I remember of that story, but that's a different story.
no, but
Um,
the idea, I know
but
it's a different story, but what I'm saying is this idea of time that it took, or the war
yeah,
was 10 years,
that
that
makes
kind of
sense. But
stuff.
the Trojan War, the time frame sort of makes sense because some historians feel like that they'd been gone so long or been gone so much they weren't welcome back to their homes when they got there. And so then these Greeks go back out into the Aegean and back out into the Mediterranean. What I mean? They're pirates now. Like they're not welcome back. They're women. The women have already remarried or whatever. Um, Their
Yeah.
farms have already been taken over or whatever. So like, so so there's something there. They're like Vietnam vets.
Well,
They're not
that's
welcome
true.
back into the fold.
Well, the other the other interesting fact, or conjecture, is there's some archaeologists and historians even doubt that there was a Trojan War. They believe it's not. It's even there's even a lack of evidence to really show about the city of Troy if it really existed or not.
Oh,
So
interesting.
there's speculation about that as well. But let's assume that there was a Troy, and let's assume that the Greeks and the Trojans did fight. I think there's probably some truth to that. Uh, and the fact that it was 10 years, yeah, but they would have left and come back. You're saying it would be seasonal
Right. It
campaigns,
wouldn't have been, yeah, it wouldn't have been, 10 years straight
not
or,
on a beach. How do you live on a beach?
but maybe it was enough time. Maybe it was enough time, or maybe it was one of those weird things where the final year, maybe they were snagged for the last couple of years, like, or for some reason, weather, or who knows what. What I read that there actually was a Troy because there's a huge castle stone
They
structure that
found
was there.
some archaeological evidence that there was a
Um,
city there.
and the latest thinking is that probably probably the reason for the Trojan War, like Helen, if anything, was just the needle, was just the straw that broke the camel's back because Troy controlled that whole strait. So Troy was a control and taxation point
Mhm,
for traders that
mhm.
controlled that entire strait that runs through. Um, I forget the name of that strait, but it runs from Troy through to the
Aegean, the Aegean Sea.
runs from the Aegean to the anyway, it's in that region. It's in that region there. This may be the Saudi region or something where, and it's an important trade route. And so that's probably the actual
Yeah.
causes of the conflicts. Let's touch a little bit. It's been almost an hour, so let's touch a little bit on some of the symbolism that maybe was kind of cool in this. I personally, so this movie gets flattened in a few different ways. One of them is everything gets flattened into Zeus's law. So that's not really how it was back then. So back then they had very specific um, you know aspects of the law that they referred to individually. So
Hmm.
it was a lot more poly. So just to lump everything under Zeus's laws, that's a modern thing. Like that's
Yes, that's
what
true.
we do.
Yeah.
But back then they would be like, they'd be like Athena, and then it would be like, it would look like a full name, like Athena, um, you know, Hekior or Hekios or something to signify that this was Athena,
Mhm.
that guarded the house, that type of deal. So they'd have all these different aspects um,
Yeah.
of
Right.
Zeus's
Yeah.
law.
Well, yeah. Similar times, the Egyptians were you know, uh, poly, um, the
Polytheism.
yeah, polytheism, and it wasn't until Akhenaten that which predated the Hebrews actually, there was the beginnings of monotheism, the idea, and even a lot of scholars, acknowledge that it was actually Akhenaten and his idea of the sun god as being monotheistic
Oh yeah,
before before the Hebrews, uh, had the Abraham, Isaac, and Joseph, the idea of one God. So, and then the Greeks were polytheistic, so they had numerous gods. So there were even at the time of the Greeks, and then the Romans too had, prior to Christianity, had many gods, right? Essentially the Greek gods, but with Roman names,
yeah. Um, Yeah, for sure. Like,
polytheistic.
I think Zoroastrianism was pretty cool. It was pretty early. So one of the things there's another interesting character or actor selection choice in this, and that is that's Sinon. So Sinon is a trans actor, and they get chosen to be the sacrificial
Oh
lamb.
yes,
They get
yeah,
sacrificed
that's
right at the
right.
beginning, right? So Sonon, this actor plays someone who's not really a warrior, but for some reason Odysseus chooses Sonon to be the fall person, um, to lie to the Trojans that this is a gift.
Yeah.
And so Sonon fulfills that promise, but essentially it's just completely a sacrifice by Odysseus. It's just another one of Odysseus' sacrifices, on his way to in his
Yes.
next trick. In his next trick. So so that's an interesting move. So I find fascinating, like what's behind. So guilt is a modern word, right? So there wasn't really guilt in that day they talked about. So, but the sources of Odysseus's guilt were, number one, um, the Trojan horse is supposed to, is um, what's that word for? Anyway,
Doubting.
it's a fake gift to Athena, right? So they pretend it's a gift to Athena. So that's actually the first transgression. You're violating your piety to a god, including the language of giving a gift. Okay, so that's Odysseus's first kind of breaking of one of Zeus's laws. Falls under one of Zeus's laws. The second one is the which we talked about already, which is the killing of the Cassandra character at Athena's altar, right? So there's two transgressions there. She's a suppliant, right? She's, if you're standing at a God's altar, it's the same thing as saying, I give up. Please don't harm me.
Mhm.
I, I give, I forgetting my words, but I give everything up to you. I'm not going to fight you, type of thing. So
Surrender.
yeah,
Surrender.
I surrender basically. That's she gets killed. She gets beheaded in the film. Um, that's a transgression. The other transgression is just you know desecrating the altar of Athena. So it's just like, and so that's Ajax. Ajax the Lesser is the one that commits that crime, and he has his own. He so supposedly partly pays for it, and then it would seem that perhaps he doesn't fully pay for it, and so some of the payment has to come from Odysseus and his
Mhm.
men.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, so it's just I found it cool to learn something about Zeus's law, and just like, okay, so like, and there's a lot of these ethics, right? They're really really close to like the Ten Commandments, right? The ethics
Mhm.
of the Hebrews,
Mhm.
um, and the ethics of Christianity. They're all very very close, right? There's a couple of little exceptions. Um, um, where Jesus of Nazareth makes it more about intent. It's more about intent,
Mhm.
right? But even the ancient Hebrews are kind of moving that. Even the Hebrews are moving that direction, and the Greeks are about. It's all behavior. It's all related. It's all right relationship, right?
Mhm.
Right behavior. Um, but they end up looking very similar. So, and 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 Judaism um, and Zeus's laws, they're roughly got written at about the same time. So perhaps they don't know for sure. They don't know for sure.
Right.
The Old Testament I mean, it just depends on like when they were written and how long they were
Mhm.
oral tradition
Or, yeah, right,
before they were
written
written
down.
down. So they don't know for sure, but they're
Yeah.
sort of they're roughly they sort of
Yes.
roughly line up.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah, that we getting into some very, very complex and deep
for sure. And there's
stuff, like
nothing.
linguistics and different languages and when
Yeah,
languages
yeah, yeah,
were actually written down and the effects on each other.
yeah,
Yeah, and yeah, so it's a extremely complex and tied into the various cultures in that, but it certainly was a very packed region of the world at that time. It was
for
very
sure.
packed. And if you're talking about sea raiders and sea people, there's another element in there, and that's the Phoenicians and Carthaginians, who actually were extremely powerful, sort of around the time that Greece was failing and Rome and the Etruscans were coming to power. The Etruscans, the Carthaginians, which had a direct North Africa, and the Middle Eastern Phoenicians had a very strong seagoing, powerful relationship. And the Carthaginians were a very powerful nation that actually at one point had made intrusions into Europe as well. I mean, to Southern Europe, not just
Yeah,
North Africa. So
yeah,
yeah, so they were traditionally like the badass seafaring guys.
yeah. I mean, yeah. So no, no. I looked at a map afterwards of the sort of the Mycenaean era, and it covered a lot of area, and there's a lot of populated,
Yeah,
cities and city states in that era.
yes,
One thing I found interesting was that um, someone asked, like, how do you get lost? It's not that far. How does it take you that long to get home? It's not that far, kind of deal. But it is interesting to note that Ithaca, where Odysseus is from, is on the opposite side of Greece. So Troy is over here. You have to go through all the islands and
yes,
around Greece, right,
yeah,
to get back to Ithaca. So there is, I mean, you see where it comes from, the imagination of having to, like, if something went wrong, you know what I mean,
yeah,
when you're rounding Greece, you could be end up in the Mediterranean, and
yeah,
be
yeah,
but probably Calypso was just his girlfriend for 7 years,
yeah.
and he
Probably.
was
Yeah, you could do it that way and make it super realistic. But
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah,
that would be my choice, just like make it more complex and realistic, like everyone's sort of good and bad, and like
yeah,
just
yeah. Modern retelling yes, I find that with Shakespeare too, and it's usually the original Shakespeare works better than a lot of the very deep psychological interpretations. So going back to one of your original points about humor, Shakespeare knew how important humor was, a comic relief. Uh, he was brilliant at it, very brilliant at introducing. And there's so much comedy, so much funny stuff in even all of his tragedies that are worth noting. So yeah, it's a very important part of great filmmaking. And if you can think of a lot of the great films, there tends to be these comic moments.
no, no,
Although,
without
yeah,
question, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Well, like
um,
where's that? I mean, like a bunch of guys at war. I mean, where's the camaraderie? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
like the bond of brothers.
yeah,
And the humor goes along with it. It's hand in hand with that, because you can't survive without it,
yeah,
right? And so if it's just serious and droll, like no one's gonna survive that. Like you're just
yeah,
gonna,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because yeah, I keep going back to the master of this kind of hero movie, uh, Kurosawa, with Yojimbo and Seven Samurais and all that. The idea of the hero. There was a lot of really fun humor in that, and very well told, very well, and a lot of, as you say, close-up shots of people's reactions. They're just masterworks. Um, and
yeah,
but I would let me just say make this one comment. Just the fact we kind of have a shotgun approach here. We're just scattering a bunch of stuff out, different things, as stream of consciousness and just our reactions to things. But just the fact that we're talking about it so much in such great detail, I wonder if that's a sign that there's something to this film.
No, that's what I'm saying. Is this film educational? Yes. Or does it force you to be educational? Absolutely. Um, there's also that aspect of where of being you and I probably have been let down in some way. Like the Odyssey of our youth is probably way better than
Mm,
this movie shows up. And this is how a lot of, if you really
yeah,
love the story or a novel or something, usually the movie is pretty crap compared to it because
yeah,
um,
yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. It is like even like the great epic Cecil B. DeMille's 1950s Charlton Heston, The Ten Commandments, which is this big, spectacular, well done movie that most people loved, but at the same time, yeah, I know the story. Yeah, yeah, that's not right. Yeah, it's there's something to that. I think um, here's the thing. Lots of people really like it, and as you said, your audience clapped at the end.
we
Um,
did.
so it might not be a um, critical success as far as we're concerned, but it seems to be successful for the masses. That people, it's got
Yeah.
great box office, and people
I'm,
love it.
I'm really curious to the value that people are getting out of it. I am. So I'm going to have to actually ask people now, what did you like about it? And without injecting my own like
Yeah,
opinion of,
yeah,
soullessness, we could just sum up. It's soulless, um, almost no character development, um, no philia, which is like camaraderie, brotherly love, no comedy, hardly.
yeah,
Uh, um, and no close, no one has any friends, so there's
yeah.
no great reactions from other human beings.
Also, tension. Um, in so many films, like The Great Escape, for instance, take that movie, or take any kind of, even like The Alamo. There's this great tension in it. But when they snuck out of the Cyclops cave and when they were sailing in the boat and there was a whirlpool, I don't know. I just didn't have any feeling of tension. I don't know. It just didn't seem like it was that.
Well, we know how it ends. The problem is we know how it ends.
Okay.
But also we don't. But the thing is, though, if you like the characters, then you're invested in them. A
Yeah,
big part of this seems like Nolan assumed that we already knew all the characters and that we were intimate with them.
maybe. Yeah,
So he doesn't have to like
yeah.
he, but that's not how it works. Like every different actor who plays a character, you have to get to know their version of that character. You know what I mean? Like
Yes, yeah,
it's
yeah.
a brand new
And it's
experience.
okay. It's okay because that's the wonder. That's the great thing about film and acting is the genius of the actor, what the actor and director do together to create this
I would
fantastic character. So we don't care if it's
I would
alternate
say
or it's the same character as long as it's something that's really, fantastic, a
I would
fantastic
say
character.
I would say usually between, I mean, that's what you expect between a director and an actor. But I don't feel we got that this time. I don't feel we got
Okay.
the synergy between director and actor on any of,
Yeah.
in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
that's true. We talked a little bit about how great the original Alien film was because of the great characters in it and the simplicity of the villain, the simplicity of the quote monster, just one thing, and you don't see it for a long time, and the characters in their internal, conflicts between them. They're all such really great characters in that movie. Everything from the blue collar guys in the bowels of the ship to Ripley, the strong woman who knows that something is really screwed up. She's the one person that's skeptical, and you love the skeptical person that's like,
Yeah,
yeah, she's like she's represents us. We're
yeah.
the audience, and we know that there's something screwed up, and so
Well,
does she. So we identify with her because she's
yeah.
us.
But we also identify with the other characters because they're just like, slack, blue collar slackers working in the
Yeah,
in the hold the ship, whatever. Like,
yeah,
so like, it's almost like in the Odyssey, Nolan says, "Listen, I'm not going to be filming anyone's reaction to any character." And so then everyone's just not paying attention to anybody else. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And so like the energy in the room, it must have just been like a vacuum.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
because normally it's like everyone's present, paying it, and everyone's reacting all the time, and like focusing. Like it seemed to lack that kind of
yeah.
that
Yes, yeah,
ensemble. Like where was the ensemble in this?
yeah. No, I get that, and I have to say that I do really appreciate Nolan's most of his other work, and all of the actors. I really love their previous works. So, you know,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's one of the things too, is that his other stuff is generally excellent, right? So it's like it's a
right.
weird kind of,
I
yeah.
think that Anne Hathaway, I think that she was in the this Alice in Wonderland movie with uh, that really eccentric actor.
Johnny Depp.
Johnny Depp. Yeah, I think she was the one in that, and she was just unbelievable as the queen. She's just so great as one of the queens, I guess. Yeah,
I'm gonna have to look that up
yeah, yeah.
because
She's always been good. She was great as the cat. Was she original Catwoman, or she was some kind of in one of the Batman movies? She was great too.
well, I mean, Matt Damon is always good in his stuff too. So
Yeah,
like,
he's
it
great.
doesn't make a lot of sense. That's kind of why I'm kind
Yeah,
of
yeah. I was. Yeah,
maybe
exactly.
it's a double expectation thing where we expected more from Nolan and we also expected more
Yeah.
from the as an Odyssey.
Yes, I think, yeah, I think to a degree that's certainly part of it. But it's like anything else, it's the viewer and can't please everybody, you know,
Oh,
can't please everybody. And I think that we're kind of outliers on this, but that doesn't mean we're wrong. It just means that we have a very
I don't know. I mean, Martin Shaw. I mean, like there's me, you, and Martin Shaw, and my world of people that have talked about the Odyssey is pretty small. I mean, there's Jonathan Pajot. He liked it. Um, there's let's see, who else liked it. No, I guess my partner. I need to get more details, but she seemed to like it okay. Like she didn't think it was
yeah,
amazing or anything, but
hmm,
it was roughly enjoyable. Like I guess like any sort of.
yeah.
Um, it didn't compare to the Hail Mary project. I'll tell you that. Oh, I have another problem with this movie. Forgot to talk about this. I have another problem with this movie. Was the sound was terrible. So there's all this. So in a 3-hour movie, you don't have time to like show everything, which kind of sucks. So you have to do a lot of bit of narrating, which is
Hmm.
okay because it's part of the heritage of the Odyssey.
Hmm.
Um,
I didn't mind that.
I found all those narrative moments to be very mumbly, where the
Hmm.
sound wasn't clear.
Oh,
So
yikes.
I'm sitting there going like, what is? I mean, all the other stuff seemed fine. But those moments when there was a lot of dialogue,
Yeah.
that was low volume and kind of maybe faster talking, I'm like, what is, I would just pick out words like, and anyway. And there's one other thing too, which is when they go to Hades, they're supposed to go, it's a very specific direction from Circe to go to where the river meets of fire meets the river of ice. I mean, why mention that if we're not going to see it? This makes no sense. We don't see the river of fire meeting the river of ice. We just go to this black sand beach.
Yeah, that was really cheaping it out. That was yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it would have been so easy. It would have been so easy. You have a glacier, right, with a little bit of a lava flow, like somewhere in the
Yeah.
vicinity,
Yeah,
somewhere.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Could have been
yeah,
like in the distance, like you know what I mean,
yeah,
like a glacier and a little lava flow boom, and then you have your black sort of abyss. You
yeah.
know,
Okay.
would have been
Yeah,
simple.
you know what? That's interesting is the Lord of the Rings series, essentially another quest movie, especially the first one, the quest, um, and the trials and tribulations and obstacles to find the ring.
Yeah,
Um, that was actually more interesting.
better
So,
done. No, no, it's better done for
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
Um, Mostly, and you know, in large part, I think, due to Ian McClellan, who's just like he's just such an experienced actor that he's just. I mean, there's other talented people in there too.
well,
There's
the kids were the young men were good. They were,
yeah,
yeah, the way it was filmed, the whole thing. It was, yeah, it was it and you there were you liked characters in that. I mean, you really had to, you cared about them. I
yeah,
cared about the characters in that quite a bit.
totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
you care about all the hobbits and the elves
Oh yeah, cared about them. I
and
like the elves. I like that cool woman, the woman that was good with the bow and arrow. I
yeah,
thought they were really
yeah,
cool. And the
yeah.
blonde guy, that
The
cool blonde guy.
the Odyssey, we just don't get to see any. They did the same thing with Achilles. Like they make Achilles seem cool and special abilities, and we
Yeah,
like watching him and everything. You know,
yeah,
which is similar to like the elves in Lord of the Rings.
yeah,
We don't get any of that
yeah,
in the Odyssey. There's
yeah,
no special abilities. Like they don't really show Odysseus' special abilities or other people's. Like there's no
yeah.
real draw.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think I'm not a big fan of the Hobbits kind of stuff, that Lord of the Rings, but I have to admit that I did enjoy those three movies more than this, each one of them.
I did
I
too.
really did. I liked the characters. I liked the way it was filmed.
I did too.
Great villains, great heroes, and the kids were, the young, they're so likable. It was, yeah, no, it
I
was,
agree.
it
And
was
then
great.
Martin Freeman plays what Bilbo or is it Frodo? I forget which one he plays, but I mean he's real easy to watch.
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. So um,
yeah. So we've
and
got those.
we're sort of comparing apples to apples on both of those because Lord of the Rings and the Iliad and the Odyssey similar, sort of half real, half fantasy, sort of
Yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah.
kind of deal.
And they,
Yeah,
yeah, and they did a really good job of creating a world where you believed that this very um, medieval, kind of uh, agrarian, medieval kind of world was challenged by this fantasy, you know, horrible kind of
otherworldly
other
power.
other world, other and monsters and so forth. But it was sort of a consistency there. You could actually believe that, and the dwarfs were believable, and yeah, the elves, yeah, it just was all matched, all worked together very well.
Agreed. All right. Um, the Odyssey, I give it a solid thumbs down. I've learned a lot, um, which is cool. My big takeaway is probably mostly the all the aspects in the way I see it. Aspects. They didn't really call it aspects, but the aspects of Zeus's law that you know. There's a lot of conservatives these days that they're missing their sort of strong sense of shared morals or ethics, and
Mhm.
it's just a nice strong framework there. That's like,
Yeah,
oh, you know, it's like, oh, is this what they mean? You know, I'm a little slow. Like, this must be what they mean, and having like clear sort of behavioral, you know, ethics about relationships and behavior and stuff. So
yeah,
it's a cool thing to
yeah.
revisit.
I guess my main takeaway is that with tons of money and tons of money, tons of talent, um, um, lots of time and effort and and the most modern technology in filmmaking, it doesn't necessarily guarantee a good film.
No, yeah. On the downside, I'm the same as you. I'm like, the things that get made these days, like the things that people pour, $100 million into without seemingly without thinking, and because some of the junk that comes out, and all this time and effort and work, and people worked on it, and all these locations and everything, and like a lot of it isn't really that watchable. Like it's almost too much investment money or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like back in the day, like you couldn't make that many movies, and so you pretty much had to make sure it was quality, or you pretty much had to make sure it was going to make a profit. Otherwise,
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
now it's like, no, we can lose 10 in a row, but as long as I don't know.
Oh yeah. The people that made those big epic films like Cecil B. DeMille and those
Yeah,
kind of people that do, like Gone with the Wind, the Ten Commandments, uh, the uh, the Robe, these big epic films. How the
Ben Hur,
West, Ben
Ben
Hur,
Hur,
yeah, Ben Hur. Oh, and Spartacus.
Spartacus. Yeah, um,
Spartacus had a genius director, so that helped. Kubrick is so good. Yeah. And
yeah.
I
So
don't think that was one of his best films, actually, but it was pretty good.
yeah. All right, we went way over our. I was thinking we might be able to do this in half an hour, but that was smoke and dope apparently.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
A lot to say. A lot to say.
we did it. We could just keep going on because we have so many tangents we could go off on.
Oh, yeah. That's,
We could tell stories about linear B if we wanted to, probably. Like why did the Greeks how did the Greeks lose their written language before the Greek Dark Ages? Um, all
yeah.
right, thanks, stuff. Um, we'll bring up a little. I'm sure we'll bring up a little thing at the next.
Yeah.
When we do our next podcast, we'll have a little dieseling, a little run on from this, but
Okay. All right.
um,